episode of Eat, Sleep, Grow, Repeat. Our guest this week is the host of the excellent Art of Charm podcast, Jordan Harbinger. Jordan had for what many people would seem to be the perfect career, working as a lawyer on Wall Street. Not feeling satisfied with following the designated career path laid out for him, Jordan turned his back on an attractive guaranteed salary to co-found the Art of Charm. AOC started off with the aim of helping men meet women. However, over the next 7 years, the evolution of AOC has been incredible. Jordan realised it wasn't just important for guys to be great with girls, it was important they were great everywhere. Great at work, great at home, great with their friends and family. He realised the importance of being well-rounded, and AOC evolved from being how to get the girl to how to live your life. The all-encompassing podcast still attracts single men, but is now helping family men and even women build their confidence, get a promotion, start a new business, basically just make positive changes in their lives. With over 1.1 million downloads a month, plus a successful weekly boot camp running in Hollywood, California, Jordan is clearly on the right track. He is a perfect example of someone doing what we want to be doing, and as big fans of the Art of Charm, myself and Ben were delighted to welcome him onto the show. So without further ado, let's go over and hang out with Jordan Harbinger. Hello and welcome to Eat, Sleep, Grow, Repeat with me, Jamie Rylett, and I'm joined by my usual co-host, Ben Harrison. How are you, Ben?
Hey, what's up, guys?
And today we're joined by Jordan Harbinger from the Art of Charm. How are you, Jordan?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem, Jordan. It's a pleasure to get you on the programme. Me and Ben are both big fans of your show, so it's good to finally get to speak to you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, a lot of our listeners are into sort of the fitness, jiu-jitsu industry and wouldn't necessarily come across the Art of Charm yet. Would you be able to sum up basically what it is that you do over there?
Sure. So, we teach emotional intelligence in a way that anybody can learn and master. So everything from confidence, both physical and mental, mindsets for success, and how to create and maintain relationships, not just like romantic relationships, but a lot of people will take our courses here in LA for networking. We have everybody from guys who are programmers and computer programmers that work in cubicles all day that want a little bit more social experience, guys that want to meet and attract quality women to their lives so they can marry them and have babies, all the way up to military special forces and intelligence agents that know that their lives and their jobs depend on the connections they make with people and the level of trust that they have with those people. So we have a wide variety of clientele that come through to learn exactly that from us. As far as I know, we're the only people doing it that are non-governmental. So that's exciting for us, and we've been consistently evolving over the past decade pretty much for this.
Right, okay. I was going to say, you started off quite a while ago. Is it a decade now?
8 years and change.
8 years, wow. Do you kind of regret your choice of name, because you were more of a pickup podcast in the past, where you've kind of moved away from that completely, haven't you, nowadays?
Yeah, it would have been nice. We probably would have grown differently and more quickly had we not been so off-brand. But that was before we knew that all the pickup guys were so weird. We didn't realize. We thought, oh, this is cool. These guys know all the stuff about dating. And then after a while, we started to get good at it ourselves. And we would meet, we'd fly out to LA to meet with these guys for business stuff, thinking we could do some sort of joint venture. And that's when we realized that all these pickup guys are just marketers that write stuff on the internet. And they're not really successful with any of the stuff in their own lives generally. And they're kind of just doing it to sell an ebook. It's just another niche. And a lot of these pickup guys, they're just marketers that they've got another book about making money online. They've got another book about, I don't even know, playing the stock market. They've got another book about foreign exchange and currency. And what they are is a copywriter that takes some free articles off the web, talks about how you can do this stuff for yourself to make money, get girls, whatever problem du jour, and they just have 10 of these little mini businesses running so that they can run around and not do any real work. And it's a shame because it jades a lot of people, but that's when we decided, okay, well, we need to become more than that. And it took a long time for us to rebrand because a lot of guys, truth to be told, are out there searching for pickup stuff, and we had a great run as the top in that industry. And then we realized we were the world's shortest midget. We didn't want to stay in that industry anymore.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, the only way I could see that it possibly hold you back is people not wanting to tell people about the podcast because of a name, and it kind of people say, "Oh, I listen to the Art of Charm." They're like, "Oh, what, you're trying to learn how to trick girls?" And it's nothing to do with that at all.
Well, The Art of Charm is a great name, and honestly, if you're afraid to tell people you listen to a show about The Art of Charm, I mean, that's your own insecurity, and you should just kind of go figure that out for yourself. I don't really care if people are embarrassed about that. Then like that says more about you than it does about my brand. The Art of Charm is a great name for what we're doing. And we have a lot of females. The only people I should say that don't like The Art of Charm. A lot of people go, "Oh, it's going to be these women. You know, they're not going to get it." Women love The Art of Charm. They say, "Oh, I wish every guy would learn this." It's the guys who are sitting here with like toxic shame that think, "Oh, I wish I didn't need this. My ego hurts." When those are the guys that have a problem with it. And honestly, those guys can listen in secret all they want, but they'll eventually, and I would hope, grow out of it, and then they can get their real work done.
Yeah, I've sent it to a couple of girls, and they've really enjoyed it. So yeah, you're definitely right. I sent it to one girl. I think she's following a kind of similar educational path to you. I sent her the one on the alternatives to college because she's going through law school, but is completely undecided as to what she wants to do. And I know that you, although you actually worked on Wall Street, kind of regret that career choice.
I wouldn't say regret it, but it's not something I would do again.
No. What would you recommend to somebody in that sort of situation where they've not really got their life planned out, but they're in education?
I mean, you definitely need to figure out what it is that you want. And most people don't know what they want. And the way to do that is not to go to college and get more schooling in something that you're not sure about. It's to go out and get a little bit of life experience. But you have the trade-off, and I've talked about this on the show many times, you have the trade-off of going and traveling and working and doing some other jobs and finding out, wow, this isn't exactly what I want to do, but you know, it's interesting, and then having trouble going back to school because once you leave school, your work ethic changes. And the way that you're able to do things, study habits and things like that, those skills start to wane a little bit. But I still think that if I had to do it all over again, there's probably a better alternative, not just going to undergrad and then straight to grad school. There's probably better things I could have done, such as working for somebody who's really amazing. But back then, I didn't really have the capacity for that either. I needed to grow up and fail a bit more myself.
Would you say, I mean, I think personally, because I've travelled the world quite a lot, that travel is essential really for your development.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a beneficial experience. I don't think that if you don't do it, you're missing out on something that you need to succeed. I think it's very helpful, but I think you could probably get it volunteering in the inner city or getting any kind of new experience. I don't think you have to go and hop a train to Europe to do it. I think you could probably work at a homeless shelter in Detroit for a few months and you'd get a lot of the same experiences.
I was just wondering, if someone is going to go traveling and they're going to maybe go to a new country, a new city, a totally new environment, and they're starting from scratch, how would you advise them to go about building up a network?
All right. So, I mean, it's a hugely loaded question, requires several hours of coaching generally, but
in 10 words or less.
What's that? Yeah, I know, right? The long and short of it is, make sure your first impressions are spot on, and if you need help with that, we have 320 hours of that at the Art of Charm. And then put yourself in places where you can discover it and don't wait for others to discover you. So go to everything that you can, accept every invitation that you can. Be out in public as much as you can. Talk to as many people as you can. If you have trouble with that, again, there's 320 hours of instruction on that at the Art of Charm. And this is the free stuff. I'm not trying to say you have to come and take a boot camp. Go check out the free podcast at, the Art of Charm. Also, following up with people is your job. One of the mistakes that I made when I was younger was I would go travel and I'd meet all these people and they'd be like, yeah, cool, you should hang out with us sometime. And I literally, and it's so dumb looking at it now, but I would literally have all of these like experiences where I'd be sitting around being like, this sucks, no one ever calls me. And it's like, are you friggin' kidding me? Like, why is it anybody's job to call you? And it took me years to realize that I needed to follow up and I needed to do that.
Yeah, nice.
And I needed to systemize that as well.
Okay.
And I made no effort to bring value to other people back then. And that was a big problem. I would have had a much better time if I'd been, because it's not like I wasn't that outgoing, but I was just kind of like, okay, I wasn't that outgoing, but I was also like, when people wanted to hang out, they'd be like, yeah, call me sometime. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I'd be like, oh, the girls here suck, or the guys here are not that friendly. And I remember them being like, how come you never call me? How come we never hang out? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, man, you must be busy. You probably get all these chicks. Meanwhile, I'm at home watching like reruns of friggin' Friends.
No, so you said you systemized it. I mean, what did that look like? How did you do that?
I didn't systemize it, but I think people should systemize it because it's something that people never do. It's something that you need to have. We use contactually for separating contexts, figuring out when it's a good time to ping someone. People can use social media. If you're young and you're in a new place and you just have 10 contacts, you don't need that. Just write the new people that you meet on a friggin' notebook and text them every 3 days and see what they're doing, and you'll be top of mind and people will be in touch with you. I mean, that type of system doesn't have to be anything special, but the fact is, if you're waiting around for people to hit you up, you're going to be waiting a really long time, especially in cultures like Mexico and things like that, where things are a lot more lax and laid back. No one's going to bother you. You're the new guy. You don't have anything to bring to the table.
That's interesting. I mean, it must have been a big step for you to go from Wall Street to setting up the Art of Charm. What was the process like for that? Because it's a big jump.
Well, actually, I did just do the jump. It was literally... the Art of Charm, the reason I founded it was because of the story that I tell on the show all the time, where my mentor in the legal field, he was a guy who was never in the office and he was never around. And everyone said that he made more money than everyone else. And so eventually I asked him what the deal was, and it turned out he was bringing business to the firm, and that was much more valuable. So ... people skills trump technical skills every time, right? And everyone who listens to AOC has heard that a million times. But what I did then was I focused on networking. I focused on growing my personal network, which related, of course, back to how I can become more valuable, a better person, a more charismatic person. So once the Wall Street market turned down a little, Art of Charm was already roaring. So I was able to leave pretty quickly.
Oh, excellent. And what advice would you give to someone else who's stuck in a career path like that, where they've worked all their life for something, they've got there, and it's not turned out to be the dream job they thought it would be?
Well, I mean, no job is the dream job that you think it'll be most of the time. So, I mean, I would say you need to get experience in diverse areas of your life. And most people don't do that. They're like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to da-da-da-da-da. And you don't know that. Work at a law firm for a few months. You'll see how much it sucks, and most people don't want to be there. And find people who are willing to be honest with you about their job. Asking the lawyer who you work with, how do you like it here? He's going to be like, this is great. No, ask your friend's cousin's friend's cousin's friend's cousin's mom's uncle what he thinks about being a lawyer, and he might be like, don't do it. It sucks. And then you'll get an honest opinion from somebody who's not going to get fired for giving you an honest opinion. A lot of people are like, well, the people at the firm say it's great. Of course they do. They don't want to tell you it sucks, run for your life, and then turn around and go in the partner's office and get shit canned. Come on, dude. Be real. People have an incentive to lie to you. They might even get a bonus for making sure you get hired.
Is there like a point where someone might be aspiring to do something that they're passionate about, but that field's so competitive and it's so notoriously lowly paid that they might be better off, kind of staying in the golden handcuffs? Is there ever a situation like that, or is it always follow your passion no matter what it is?
I don't think anybody should necessarily follow their passion. I think it's terrible advice. I think people who say follow your passion are just trying to figure out a cool soundbite that they can put on an interview. I don't think anybody should use that as guidance in their life. I think it's absolutely rotten. The people you hear it from, what if I say something like follow your passion? Sure, it worked out for me. Easy for me to say. If Mark Cuban or somebody like that says follow your passion, yeah, great, dude, you're a billionaire. There are thousands of people who live in their mom's basement who are following their passion right now. They're terrible. They just don't have a microphone. They're not successful, right? They don't have a platform to tell you that. They might spout that exact same advice. In other words, this type of advice, quote unquote, is basically self-selecting. The people who are able to tell you that are the people who succeeded with it. It's kind of like saying, you know what, guys, you should really bet all your money on black and roulette. And if you win, you make tons of money and you can start a podcast and run a business and make a website about how betting on black is key. Everybody who bet on red lost their house, and they're too busy digging ditches to tell everybody the great advice that they should bet on red. It doesn't mean that either one, you know the rules of roulette, they are exactly the same, right? Probability-wise, that's the point of the game. That's the same thing with follow your passion. It's empty. It doesn't mean anything. Your passion might be underwater basket weaving. There's no market for that. Following your passion would be a really terrible idea.
How would you rephrase that advice?
I wouldn't rephrase it at all. I would say, don't bother with your passion at all. If you're trying to pay the bills, find something that pays the bills. You can always have hobbies later that you're passionate about. If you so happen to start something that you're passionate about and it pays the bills, that's great. But it should probably start as a hobby, and you should work it up from there. You don't need to, and you are not, quite frankly, entitled to doing something that you love every single day so that you can be happy. That's really not how it works. And giving people advice like, you can do things that are empowering and great, that's just woo-woo talk from people who sell motivational things. They don't necessarily pay the bills doing that either. Most of the people who say things like that, they have day jobs that they hate. They're just telling you because they hope you fare better than them. Most people I know who are entrepreneurs, yeah, we're following our passion to some degree, da-da-da-da-da. Again, it's self-selecting. But two, we go to work like everybody else, and your passion can also become a job, and you need to be prepared for that. It's not just going to be, my passion is playing music. So great, so going up on stage and practicing and things like that are fun. What about the parts that aren't fun? And, oh, by the way, 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of a percent actually make it professionally. Everybody else is poor. Like, that's not good advice. Telling people to do things that will have a 99.99% chance of failure is terrible advice, and people who do it are irresponsible. That's what I really think.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. You don't hear people say that, like you say, especially not in the podcast community. Quite a lot of time, it's all positive, and it's not that realistic how you've just laid it out there. So I think that's really good advice. Looking back yourself on everything you've done, if you could have done it differently with the knowledge you've got now, is there anything you would have changed at all?
Oh, yeah, there's a million. And I mean, I don't even know where to begin, but, you know, I don't even know.
Specifically with like the art of charm, is there anything you would have done differently from the off with that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I mean, there's so many. It's a huge question. I really don't even, I'm not 100% sure how to attack it. Yeah, I think everybody who does anything in their whole life would change things. But one big thing that I would change is I would, knowing what I know now, I would stop talking about all of the dating tactics and focus on the guy. Because back then, products and the product was training and dating and attraction. And now the product is making better men. And I would have focused on that. I would have focused on that a lot more. And I would have focused on promoting this a lot more. Because back in the day, I was like, oh, who am I? You know, I'm not famous. I'm not a certified coach in anything. You know, this is 8 years ago. I don't know what I can do. And now looking back, I'm like, man, some of the stuff that we were talking about was the only credible advice anywhere in this niche on the internet for years. And we were timid about it because we weren't, quote unquote, certified in anything. And what we realized was that doesn't matter. And that doesn't, not only does it not matter, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's strange that even yourselves who kind of teach building self-esteem and confidence had a little bit of a lack of confidence when it came to promoting your podcast, which is obviously an excellent resource, helps thousands and thousands of people. Obviously, you touched on it there, the art of charm. I mean, now it is a lot about making yourself a better man, building a business, and there's so much variety of information. But you still do touch on, obviously, the subtleties of picking up girls. And one thing, I mean, we had Chase Amanti on the other week, and it was kind of a pickup 101. But one thing we didn't cover that I noticed on your site was the importance of eye contact, vocal tonality, and body language. Could you just briefly tell us why that's important and what people are possibly doing wrong, what they should be looking out for?
In terms of, I'm sorry, I lost the question in that.
Oh, sorry. In terms of like the importance of eye contact, vocal tonality, body language, it's things that a lot of people are obsessed with. Oh, what line should you say? But they don't think about all of the other parts that are possibly more important.
Sure. I mean, nonverbal communication there's various studies that show it's somewhere between half and 3/4 plus of the communication that you bring to the table. So if you are and plus the other thing is we're making our first impression much sooner than we realize. So a lot of people think it's when you open your mouth, but it's not. It's when you become a blip on other people's radar. And so you have to, since you can't become a blip on someone else's radar only when you open your mouth, they see you coming first. That means your nonverbal communication is making that first impression before anybody else and before anything else, rather. And so you need to have that unlock. Otherwise, your first impression is less than optimal. And so, yeah, nonverbal communication is huge. And that's everything from the way you sit, stand, walk, talk, vocal tonality, eye contact, etc., and just the way that you carry yourself in general. And that requires a lot of habit forming, which requires training and which requires a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely. So what would be sort of tips you could leave someone with now, like practical tips that if a guy's in a bar that they need to look out for something that they could be possibly doing wrong and it's giving off completely the wrong vibe?
Sure. I'll leave you guys with this. You need to start with that first impression, right? Nailing it. And so the way that you can fix your nonverbal, or start to fix, rather, your nonverbal communication is every day for the next 2 weeks, every doorway that you walk through, even in your own house, straighten up, shoulders back, chin up, chest up. Not too much or you'll look a little bit ridiculous. And put a smile on your face. And what that will do is start training you to have a great entrance into every room, right? You do it at every doorway. And of course, it will stick with you for a while. And the reason that you do this even in your own house is because we're building a habit here. You cannot just turn it on when you need it. A lot of people think that they can, and they're wrong. And the reason is because you want to be present when you're interacting with people, not thinking shoulders up, chest back, chin up. Oh, no, I'm not doing this right. Oh, crap. What are they saying? Oh, no, I don't even know what's going on. That's what happens when you try to do things that aren't internalized. So we want you to internalize this. So continue to do that. Every single doorway you walk through, it will start to become internalized, which means it becomes unconscious, which means you can do it without thinking. It no longer takes up conscious brain power and processing power. And when you start to do that, people will start reacting to you differently because you're going to be carrying yourself better. And that feedback of people treating you differently is going to change the mindset that you have and the beliefs that you have about yourself. And it's a very slow process, so bear with it for months and months. And it will change the way that people react to you. And that will change the way that you carry yourself even more, resulting in a lot of little subtle changes that you don't even really know about, like better eye contact, better, more engaging conversations, people treating you with more respect. I mean, there's tons of things that start to fall into place that people won't even literally believe right now. But it's something that you need to try and internalize and do for yourself. And then when you do that, you'll start to see the results pretty much right away, and they'll continue to improve as you continue to internalize better nonverbal and verbal communication throughout the next few years.
So this is kind of what you were talking about before when you're talking about a way of building confidence is to fake it till you make it. So it's a similar principle.
But it's not like be arrogant dick until you feel confident. That's not really faking it till you make it. That's just being arrogant. And that arrogance is actually the opposite of confidence. We're trying to emulate confident behavior non-verbally so that we get positive feedback and that we can tweak that to become then and have an identity level shift so that we internalize it. It's not just about acting tough, acting confident. That's not the fake it till you make it type of principle. This is literally internalizing good habits.
Yeah, excellent. I know you've got to get off in a minute, Jordan, so if I can leave you with one last question. Something I saw on your site, which is a bit different to what a lot of people are saying again, is do you actually believe that long-distance relationships can work? I've never really heard that said. I mean, what would be your tips for someone trying to have a long-distance relationship?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we did a whole episode about this, so I'll sort of defer to that, but basically it involves consistent communication, planning time to communicate, which most people don't do when they're in live relationships, as well as keeping things engaged. And your authenticity and vulnerability has to turn up several notches. And one of the key mistakes, and I'll leave you guys with this, that people make is since they're not in front of each other anymore, they try to be like, oh, everything is peachy and rosy. And subconsciously, we know that that's not true. So if we're talking to our partner and that's what you hear on the phone all the time, we feel like the connection is starting to dull because it's less real. And for us guys especially, it's tricky for us to become vulnerable enough to keep that communication channel open and authentic. And that's what leads to the death of long-distance relationships, despite our best intentions.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for your time, Jordan. I know you've got to get off, but it's been great having you on the show. And I'd recommend to any of the guys listening to this that you definitely go over to The Art of Charm and check out the hundreds of hours of resources and articles over there.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you to Jordan Harbinger for coming on the programme to shame we didn't get long enough with Jordan, really. He had another meeting to go to, but the half an hour we did get with him was full of useful information. Jordan's got some pretty strong and unusual opinions, and it's left us a lot to think about. Afterwards, we got to speak to him for a couple of minutes before he had to shoot off, and he recommended a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You, Why Skills Trump Passion in the Quest for Work You Love by Cal Newport. And you've now read that, Ben, haven't you? What did you think of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Really good book. It's the book that we can never remember the title of. We keep calling it Be the Best or whatever, but no, it's really, really good. It's the best thing I've ever read on career. It's a very different perspective to what you hear about. Just kind of follow your passion and the money will follow that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it sounds like Jordan's being negative when he's saying, don't follow your passion, that's the worst advice ever. But he's not really saying that, is he? I mean, the book elaborates on that a bit further.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to sort of summarise the book, its central theme is that you accrue career capital in whatever you're doing. So, you're working in sales for years and years and years, you've got all this capital now in sales. So if you try and do something else in sales, you've got a network, you've got skills, you've got abilities. However, if you go, you know what, I'm going to follow my passion, and my passion is, as Jordan said, underwater basket weaving. Not sure what that is, but he says, number one, is there a market for it? Probably not. But number two, have you actually been doing that for years? Have you actually got any capital behind it? In the book, Cal Newport gives an example of a woman who's like a marketing executive. She went and tried to set up a yoga company, but had only done 2 hours of yoga training online and a couple of classes. So obviously she was always going to fail in that venture because she didn't have any career capital behind her.
I think it was 200 hours, not 2.
Yeah, 200.
Two would have been very optimistic. 2 hours of yoga behind me now, I'm starting my own business. That's it. But yeah, like you say, you've spent 18 years in marketing. You've got all of these skills, and then you're looking to earn sort of an equal standard of living with something you've spent, say, 200 hours on. It's never going to work out. So I think what Cal Newport's saying is there's got to be like a transitional stage, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing it's saying is the premise of the book is based around the motivation of how people enjoy work, and they enjoy work because of autonomy, the ability to be left alone and write their own ticket, work their own hours, and that sort of thing. Also, contribution. The extent to which what they do contributes towards something meaningful, and then relationships at work. And there is a point of saying, look, if you're doing a job that has none of these qualities whatsoever, you totally hate it, then yeah, you've got to take the advice of someone like Ty Lopez, and you've got to stop accruing capital in this thing which you're no good at, and you need to kind of start over. But yeah, a lot of it's like accrue capital in a couple of different areas simultaneously, and then have a unique set of skills. So say that you've accrued loads of capital in advertising and you're great at advertising, maybe you then have also specialised and continue to specialise in, let's say, books, and then you become the go-to guy for advertising campaigns for new books, and that give you some autonomy, it'll give you respect, contribution, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and the thing about having the skills so they can't ignore you, it's brilliant to have that confidence, isn't it? Whereas I've got to keep doing this job even though I hate it because I can't get another job, or I might not be able to earn the same money, but you've got these skills that are so transferable that there's always going to be opportunities for you. I think it's really important to be clear about what you're aiming for, isn't it? And how you're going to get there.
Yeah, completely. I mean, if you look at anyone like Tony Robbins and all the biggest life coaches and stuff, they're always like, get the vision really clear, be very specific about what it is that you're going for. I mean, I can give you an example of how I've applied Cal Newport's theory to my own life, in that whilst my passion and what I'm trying to pursue is endurance athletics, both competing and coaching, I'm currently working a job in sales where I don't get enough time to totally commit to that. So I'm looking to transfer off for now and do teaching English as a foreign language. Now, the thing is, I was like, am I throwing away all of that career capital? So I had to think about how I could transfer some of that. And there's actually teaching business English as a foreign language. So now all of that experience in sales, all that career capital, plus this new bit of capital in teaching English, comes together to give me autonomy, contribution, and to become like a respected specialist in teaching business English as a foreign language in somewhere out in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, no, that sounds excellent. And then obviously you've got a lot more time to actually run and.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Whereas if you just quit your job and say, right, I'm going to be a runner.
Yeah,
it could be an absolute disaster.
I mean, that's where that long-term clear image comes in, knowing that the endurance is the ultimate goal.
I really love this Picasso saying that I heard recently. It's never permit dichotomy to rule your life, a dichotomy in which you hate what you do so you can have pleasure in your spare time. Look for a situation in which your work will give you as much happiness as your spare time. I think that's pretty much the key to happiness, isn't it? Because if you're just working a job you hate 60 hours a week so you can have 2 weeks in Spain in the summer, and I mean, what percentage of that of your life is miserable, isn't it? And that 2 weeks there's so much pressure on that 2 weeks as well, though. How's it going to live up to 50 weeks of grind? Yeah. And then that 2 weeks needs to be the best 2 weeks you've ever had, isn't it? Or it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I think everyone's sort of experienced that with a big holiday or event, and it doesn't live up to what they thought it would.
Yeah, so I think definitely is something I'm going to look to do as well. Did you sort of sit down and write this out as a process of where you wanted to be and how you're going to get there? Or?
I should have done. All I've done really is, as I'm reading a book, I'll always keep a plain piece of paper as the bookmark, and I'll just scribble an idea down or something like that. And I've got that in a book that I'm reading at the minute. I've just got a literal sort of flow diagram mapped out where it's like what I'm working in now, sales and this career capital, with a simultaneous line running along in endurance training, which goes along furthest to show that that's like the ultimate goal. And then it's like TEFL follows out of sales, so you can see where all of this career capital comes together, and then the options of a few different countries teaching business English as a specialised language, and then that arrow finally follows back through into endurance sports. It's a little bit difficult to explain that on the podcast, but hopefully people can follow what I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, if people just get from that it's important to take a little bit of time just to sit down and be very clear about what you're aiming to do.
Yeah, Tony Robbins talks about how he does coaches people through some course. I can't remember which one it is, but it's sit down and get a huge piece of paper and spend hours, like go into a lot of detail on exactly what you're looking for in life. The more specific, the more written down, the better, really. And it doesn't matter what you're looking for. I think that's absolutely key. If someone was looking for like the perfect partner, it's like draw a picture, write 3 pages on personality traits and all that stuff, and this is like Tony Robbins did it himself, and he's like, bang, you find that, because you can't find something that you're not looking for.
That's like when we had Jeff Thompson on the podcast, and he was talking about he was looking to start doing judo, and he wanted world-class judo club, and all of a sudden he finds Neil Adams just down the road, and he said his words were he created that club by his thought of wanting to find that. He created it. And I don't think he means that literally, but it's just the thing, isn't it? You'll miss opportunities unless you're looking for them, unless you know what you're looking for. The opportunities could be there, just down the road from you, but you won't know unless you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Got to have a clear vision.
Thanks to Ben, and special thanks to Jordan again. I personally found that interview really useful. I thought there was a lot of good information, so I hope that you guys got something out of it too. If you're enjoying the show, and you don't want to miss any future episodes, then why not go over to our Facebook page and give us a like, or follow us on Twitter. You can find the links on www.eatsleepgrowrepeat.com. There's also a lot of useful articles there and some links you might want to check out. Also, if you're feeling particularly like supporting the podcast, you can go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and a brief review. I know it's a bit of a hassle, but really, guys, it doesn't take long. I went over to all the podcasts I listened to, like Art of Charm, and gave them a 5-star rating and left a comment. And it took a matter of minutes, and we really do appreciate it. It really does help us out. Right, I'm going to leave you with a track that I actually created myself. Now, I can't really take full credit. I was listening to John C. and Alex's epic chill-out track, Indian Summer, on YouTube, and I was reading the comments, and instead of the usual mix of sexism, racism, nationalism, and just general negativity, there was actually a really interesting comment, and that was a suggestion to play Robert F. Kennedy's eulogy delivered by Senator Edward Ted Kennedy over the top of Indian Summer. I tried it, and it was so powerful. the words are so relevant even today, and it's delivered in such an emotional manner with Indian summer building in the background. I actually usually I skip through tracks quite a lot on YouTube. I couldn't skip through it, I couldn't switch it off. I think it's incredible, so I've edited it slightly to make it fit better. So here it is. I hope you like it. Apologies in advance if it makes you cry, but I did warn you it's emotional. But I hope you enjoy it, and we'll be speaking to you again in a couple of weeks.
Love is not an easy feeling to put into words, nor is loyalty, or trust, or joy. But he was all of these. He loved life completely, and he lived it intensely. A few years back, Robert Kennedy wrote some words about his own father, which expresses the way we and his family felt about him. He said of what his father meant to him, I quote, "What it really all adds up to is love. Not love as it is described with such facility in popular magazines, but the kind of love that is affection and respect, order and encouragement, and support. Our awareness of this was an incalculable source of strength. And because real love is something unselfish and involves sacrifice and giving, we could not help but profit from it." And he continued, "Beneath it all, he has tried to engender a social conscience. There were wrongs which needed attention. There were people who were poor and needed help. We have a responsibility to them and to this country. Through no virtues and accomplishments of our own, we have been fortunate enough to be born in the United States under the most comfortable conditions. We therefore have a responsibility to others who are less well off." That is what Robert Kennedy was given. What he leaves to us is what he said, what he did, and what he stood for. A speech he made to the young people of South Africa on their day of affirmation in 1966 sums it up the best, and I would like to read it now. "There is discrimination in this world, and slavery and slaughter and starvation. Governments repress their people. Millions are trapped in poverty, while the nation grows rich, and wealth is lavished on armaments everywhere. These are differing evils, but they are the common works of man. They reflect the imperfection of human justice, the inadequacy of human compassion, our lack of sensibility towards the suffering of our fellows. But we can perhaps remember, even if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers, that they share with us the same short moment of life, that they seek, as we do, nothing but the chance to live out their lives in purpose and happiness, winning what satisfaction and fulfillment they can. Surely this bond of common faith, this bond of common goal, can begin to teach us something. Surely we can learn, at least, to look at those around us as fellow men. And surely we can begin to work a little harder to bind up the wounds among us and to become in our own hearts brothers and countrymen once again. The answer is to rely on youth, not a time of life but a state of mind, a temper of the will, a quality of imagination, a predominance of courage over timidity, of the appetite for adventure over the love of ease. The cruelties and obstacles of this swiftly changing planet will not yield to the obsolete dogmas and outworn slogans. They cannot be moved by those who cling to a present that is already dying, who prefer the illusion of security to the excitement and danger that come with even the most peaceful progress. It is a revolutionary world we live in, and this generation at home and around the world has had thrust upon it a greater burden of responsibility than any generation that has ever lived. Some believe there is nothing one man or one woman can do against the enormous array of the world's ills. Yet many of the world's great movements of thought and action have flowed from the work of a single man. A young monk began the Protestant Reformation. A young general extended an empire from Macedonia to the borders of the earth. A young woman reclaimed the territory of France. And it was a young Italian explorer who discovered the New World. And the 32-year-old Thomas Jefferson who reclaimed that all men are created equal. These men move the world, and so can we all. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Few are willing to brave the disapproval of their fellows, the censure of their colleagues, the wrath of their society. Moral courage is a rarer commodity than bravery in battle or great intelligence. Yet it is the one essential, vital quality for those who seek to change a world that yields most painfully to change. And I believe that in this generation, those with the courage to enter the moral conflict find themselves with companions in every corner of the globe. For the fortunate among us, there is the temptation to follow the easy and familiar paths of personal ambition and financial success, so grandly spread before those who enjoy the privilege of education. But that is not the road history has marked out for us. Like it or not, we live in times of danger and uncertainty, but they are also more open to the creative energy of men than any other time in history. All of us will ultimately be judged, and as the years pass, we will surely judge ourselves on the effort we have contributed to building a new world society and the extent to which our ideals and goals have shaped that event. Our future may lie beyond our vision, but it is not completely beyond our control. It is the shaping impulse of America that neither fate nor nature nor the irresistible tides of history, the work of our own hands, matched to reason and principle, that will determine our destiny. There is pride in that, even arrogance, but there is also experience and truth. In any event, it is the only way we can live. That is the way he lived. That is what he leaves us. My brother need not be idealized or enlarged in death beyond what he was in life. Be remembered simply as a good and decent man who saw wrong and tried to right it, saw suffering and tried to heal it, saw war and tried to stop it. Those of us who loved him and who take him to his rest today pray that what he was to us, what he wished for others, will someday come to pass for all the world. As he said many times in many parts of this nation, to those he touched and who sought to touch him. Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not.